Good morning, everyone. First, I would like to thank everyone from the press for being here today. It's a very important day, and your presence alone is certainly going to help our challenge. Before I ask Mayor Melham to come up and bring us up to speed on this very serious water issue, I would like to acknowledge some very important people here. We have some of our departments that have been working around the clock, addressing this issue and helping us in every way, shape as possible. We have our town engineer, who 24/7 has been continuing testing the water and is in charge of providing all of the testing for our community. That's Tom Herritz. We have from a public safety office, we have Police Chief Mark McKinney and Deputy Chief Garbo. We also have Battalion Chief Frank Papiani. Our Public Works Department played a very important role. We have our superintendent and supervisors, William Gilbert, Rocco Balsamo, and Bobby Welter. Our Health Department, we have Kylie Britton, our health officer. We have Councilwoman Naomi Pena. Sorry about that. And did I miss anybody? I think we got everybody again. And you'll see why, as a group, our department heads and were very instrumental in the challenge that we face. I teach a class, a public administration class at Kane University, and if I was able to bring my class to Belleville today, today's lesson plan would be titled, How Government on the State and Federal Level Fail the Residents of Belleville on every level. This issue has divided our community, and we are speaking, unfortunately, and we're not receiving any answers. Our message is very loud and it's very clear. Belleville needs help, and there's no other way of saying it. We are in a very difficult position today, and we're not receiving the help that we need. The one person that has been speaking the loudest has been Mayor Michael Melham. And for those of you who know Mayor Melham, he's not going away until we get the amount and the right type of help that we need. You're going to be hearing a lot from Mayor Melham. So it's probably appropriate at this time that I ask Mayor Melham to come up. I do want to just thank two other people. One of our best landlords in the community of Belleville is Al Dorso, the owner of this property. Mr. Dorso, thank you so much. And again, we also would have to thank North Jersey Advertising, George Crescione, who has provided us this billboard getting our message out. So without further ado, again, thank you so much. Your presence here today will be very helpful to our message, and I'd like to introduce to you our leader, Mayor Melham.
Good morning. As mayor, you pray that you never get certain calls. You never want to hear about an injured officer or worse, a tragic fire, a missing child. Unfortunately, this morning, I received one of those communications. As of last night, Belleville-based Claremont Medical Center has confirmed the first positive test result for lead in one of our residents. While we can't directly connect it to the Newark water crisis, it should stand as a wake-up call for every single one of us. This issue transcends politics, race, socioeconomic status. It's not a Democrat or a Republican issue. It's not black, brown, or white. It's a human issue. It's a matter of public health. As mayor, I've never felt so helpless. Belleville didn't create this problem. Belleville didn't perpetuate it, and Belleville can't fix their own water. It goes beyond Belleville and Newark, which is precisely why I'm once again calling upon federal and state officials to provide assistance. And by assistance, I don't mean calls or letters of support. I mean filters to hold us over temporarily, and federal monies and state grants for residential lead line replacement, as replacement is the only long-term permanent solution. I'm going to break from the original order today because of that news that just broke from Claremont. So I'm going to take a moment to first introduce and announce the fact that Belleville residents can obtain free lead screenings from Claremont. No appointments are necessary. They could just show up at 5 Franklin Avenue, the ground floor, room G8, Monday through Friday from 7:30 to 3:30, and on Saturdays from 7:30 to 12. No appointments are necessary, although residents should bring photo ID and an insurance card if you have one, although insurance is not required. For questions, please call Claremont directly, 973-450-2166. And again, going off script for just another moment, last week, ahead of the school children returning to class, we took the action of having every single one of our schools tested, strictly out of an abundance of caution. So I'm here today to formally announce the results that every single one of our schools is clean of lead. Our results came back non-detectable. So you could rest assured that your children are drinking safe water in their schools. Having said all that, I just want to get some facts out of the way. Belleville has nearly 40,000 residents, and we estimate about 6,000 residential service lines. Belleville's water is not contaminated or polluted. Belleville's infrastructure does not contain lead. Depending on the age of street, there may be a lead service line connecting to certain houses. There is absolutely nothing wrong with the water supply at its source, at the Pequannock Reservoir. As the water comes to Belleville from the Pequannock Reservoir, it gets to us before it hits the Newark infrastructure, with the exception of 500 houses in the Silver Lake area of town. We have tested our 2 interconnections, which is where we receive the water from Newark. Both of those have passed. No lead detected there. The problem lies primarily with the individual homeowners' lead service lines. That said, Newark's treatment of the water is meant to coat those lead service lines and prevent the lead from leaching into the water supply as it sits in pipes overnight. Unfortunately, as we all know, that treatment has been failing. When we discuss actionable and reportable levels of lead, please know we are talking about 15 parts per billion. We were made aware of exceedances because Newark and Belleville regularly test. It should be noted that nobody came in to test Newark's water. Newark voluntarily tested and voluntarily submitted the results. There is some good news. Our last tests show that Newark's new treatment is beginning to work. It's just going to take time. We think about 9 months. As always, we urge residents to flush their lines. First thing in the morning, 2 or 3 minutes of cold water. That should suffice for now. Those are the basic facts. Before I continue and move on to the Billboard, I just want to acknowledge some key people that I've been working with. I want to acknowledge our Essex County Executive, Mr. Joe DiFrancesco. This is not his problem, yet he was one of the first people to step up and provide a real solution. Through the Essex County Improvement Authority and Essex County's great AAA bond rating, they're able to provide low-cost loans. Newark is going to take advantage of that and spend $120 million on total lead service line replacement. That has been offered to Belleville, and I thank the county executive for that. My council colleagues and I have already discussed it, and we will be making a decision shortly. However, I will tell you some facts. To replace all 6,000 lead service lines in Belleville is a cost of approximately $24 million. Just by the way numbers go, that's nearly 1/3 of our municipal budget. That's something Belleville can't do right now. That's why I'm calling upon federal and state officials to provide that economic funding to help us do this. Next, I want to say clearly that I stand with Newark, and I stand alongside Newark Mayor Ras Baraka. I personally have faith in him and his leadership. I communicate with the mayor regularly, the last time being just yesterday. He's always been there for Belleville. For instance, when Newark purchased 38,000 filters, I immediately called him up and asked him if he would do for Silver Lake what he did for Newark. He immediately said yes, and 500 filters showed up in Belleville. When the state sent 70,000 bottles of water, and keep in mind, the state sent those bottles of water to Newark, not one truck ended up here in Belleville. I called the mayor, and I asked the mayor to do for Silver Lake what he did for Newark. And guess what? The mayor sent bottles of water for our Silver Lake residents that happened to be on Newark's infrastructure. Lastly, and most notably, as the mayor plans to spend $120 million to replace his lead service lines in Newark, he has confirmed and committed to me that all Silver Lake residential lead service lines will be replaced by Newark. That's a total of 500. So filtersforbelleville.org. What's it all about? At this point, it should basically be obvious. First and foremost, you need to know something. It's a plea. On August 28th, on a conference call with the New Jersey Commissioner, DEP Commissioner McCabe, I asked point blank if the state would provide funding for filters for Belleville. Her answer was clear. Mayor, Belleville is on their own. While I learned many years ago that no is an answer, I also learned never to accept it. Therefore, today, I once again call upon the state to reconsider providing residents of Belleville with much needed help and assistance. Mostly because this past Monday, the New Jersey DEP announced on a press conference that, by the way, I was on, that they will be spending $1 million for a community outreach campaign to Newark residents on how to adequately use the filters they already have. Meanwhile, Belleville residents have no filters. Therefore, the purpose of Filters for Belleville is threefold. One, to raise awareness that Belleville residents drink the same exact water as Newark, and that 100% of our residents drink Pequannock-based Newark water. Two, to log and catalog those residents who are interested in requesting a filter. Three, when filters do become available in whatever quantity, through whatever optional questions we ask on our website, if need be, we will be able to prioritize the requests for filters. For instance, if you go to the website now, filtersforbelleville.org, you'll see that we have some questions there. We ask if there are any children under the age of 6 in the household. We ask if you're elderly. We ask if you're under a doctor's care. We also ask if you may be pregnant or a nursing mother. This will allow us to prioritize the filters once we obtain them. We are dealing with an issue that is larger than Belleville and larger than Newark, which is exactly why I constantly ask for federal and state assistance. Beyond that, myself and the township manager continue to explore alternative funding sources. I've spoken twice with the governor's chief of staff. We are in current talks with the New Jersey League of Municipalities, as well as the Division of Local Government Services. Beyond that, alone over the past few months, I've spoken in one way or another to every single member of our federal delegation. I've traveled to Washington, D.C. I've met with Congressman Series. I've invited Congressman Series to Belleville, and he's been here. I've spoken twice with the governor's office. I've spoken directly to the governor. I've spoken at length with our county executive and his team. I've dealt with our entire 29th Legislative District leadership. I've had frequent conversations, as you now know, with Mayor Baraka, and I've probably spent 4 to 6 hours a day for the past few months alone on this one topic. I've attended countless meetings and press conferences. I've spent hours on those conference calls, including a very notable and memorable one last August, where the commissioner told me point blank, Mayor, Belleville's on their own. So why this and why now? My entire time advocating for the township, I educate our federal delegation, federal officials, state officials, county and local officials on just how unique this situation is specifically to Belleville. Why is it so unique? First and foremost, we're a customer. We buy our water. We don't treat the water. Next, a small portion of Belleville, as you've already heard, Silver Lake, is actually on the Newark's infrastructure system. Approximately 500 residents there. So much so that they are billed quarterly by the city of Newark for their water, and they pay Newark directly for their water. Unlike Newark, but like Nutley and like Bloomfield, Belleville residents are actually responsible for their own residential service lines, from the curb to inside their house. Belleville's responsibility is for the infrastructure that runs down the center of the street and that connects to the curb. Finally, something to date that I haven't heard anybody discuss is the fact that Belleville is the only municipality whereby 100% of our residents drink 100% Pequannock-based Newark water. That's not the same for Bloomfield, that's not the same for the 60 households in Hillside, and that's not the same for the few households in Nutley. Not even Newark residents, 100% of them drink Pequannock-based water, but 100% of Belleville residents drink Pequannock-based Newark water. It's clear and abundantly obvious that no matter how much I advocate on Belleville's behalf, Belleville is still rarely in the equation. I've constantly said, whenever Newark is mentioned, Belleville needs to be in the conversation. As just one of the many examples I could show, I would refer you to the EPA in New Jersey website. You'll see a screenshot. We have one here. The very first paragraph, the second sentence, it clearly states the following. The EPA continues to work with Newark and NJDEP as all parties work to ensure that the people of Newark are protected from lead in their drinking water. My residents read this and say, what about us? The main question here is, if Belleville is on their own, then why is the state DEP spending $1 million on a community outreach campaign in Newark when my residents drink exactly the same water? Belleville is 1/5 the size of Newark. If Newark is getting $1 million, shouldn't Belleville get $200,000? I often hear the governor talk about fairness and equality. Again, I'm asking, is this fair and is this equal? With that said, I'm going to conclude this portion of the press conference and I'll open it up to anybody that might have any specific questions.
Mayor, where was the resident living that tested positive for that?
That I cannot say. I have the information, but unfortunately because of HIPAA, we're not allowed to say. And we cannot directly associate it to the Newark water issue.
Mayor, how many people have signed the petition so far, and what's the goal?
The petition just went live at the beginning of this press conference, so I don't have that information right now. I can tell you that we're going to then print out everything and hand deliver it down to Trenton directly.
Mr. Mayor, how do you explain these conversations where somebody says that Belleville is on their own? Why is it
That I cannot explain. I can tell you that Belleville didn't create this problem, Belleville didn't perpetuate it, and Belleville doesn't have any control of the treatment of our water. Therefore, somebody needs to step up. This issue is bigger than Belleville, and it's bigger than Newark. I've been calling upon our federal and state officials to do something. They're very good at issuing press releases. They're very good at telling me that they support me in a letter or call them if I need anything. Here's what I need. I need 6,000 filters for my residents.
And we know you have lead service lines, 6,000 in Newark, we were dealing a lot with lead testing and levels coming back in high. Do you have any results, any testing that you can talk to us about that you can equate to us right now?
We do it. After the press conference, I can refer you to our township engineer. I'll tell you that by law, we're mandated to test twice a year, just like Newark is, and our levels absolutely exceeded levels, and we're actionable and reportable, meaning that we have to send a letter to all of our residents notifying them that their drinking water has violated federal standards. Yet, we're out of control. We don't have the ability to fix that problem ourselves.
any idea how many residents you let down the state?
We do it every single time. So the last time we did it was probably this past June. Now this past June, we exceeded the levels again, and that's the last time the levels went out. I can make our township engineer, who is our water provider, available after this press conference.
Mayor, how long is the billboard going to be up?
So far, it's up indefinitely. Right now, it's frozen just for this press conference, but it'll go alongside a loop, and it'll play every 8 seconds. It'll last every 8 seconds every time it comes on. And again, this is being provided free of cost. There's absolutely no cost to the billboard. It's being provided as a PSA announcement, as well as my personal social media campaign, and the website that went up was produced by my company. at no cost to the taxpayers. Anybody else?
Homeowners are actively testing their lead and obviously the water in their homes in order to prepare these homeowners. And is, like Newark, is the city offering free testing?
We do have the ability to offer free testing. We actually have the call up, a phone number that we have is like a hotline that goes right to our township engineer's office, and then we can go out and test. I will tell you this, there was a lot of news a couple weeks ago about Newark filters failing. First of all, that was a sample size of 3 based on 38,000. Everybody went crazy when that happened, so much so the EPA mandated Newark distribute bottled water. And as you heard me say, the state then sent bottled water where? To Newark, not to Belleville, even though we drink the same water. I will tell you this, those couple hundred filters that we did get from Newark for our Silver Lake residents that happened to be on Newark's infrastructure, we tested those ourselves, and just like Bloomfield's results show and Newark's most recent results show, the filters are holding. So we are still advocating for the rest of our township for filters. Anybody else?
Why do you think Belleville is getting pushed to the side?
I think it's a combination of things. I'll tell you that we border Newark and we're brothers and sisters with Newark, but I'm going to tell you that we're a lot smaller than Newark. I don't have the pulpit that Ras Baraka has. I'm grateful for you all being here today, and I had to take measure to my own hands. The mayor can pick up the phone and call almost anybody in this federal delegation. While I could do the same, they tend to listen to him a little better than they listen to me. So while we were on a conference call, and this is where I'm going to conclude it, this whole thing came to a breaking point on Monday. On Sunday, I was invited to yet another conference call. And if you saw my text message exchange, which are now on my social media account, you'll know that I was skeptical about that call. I was skeptical that it would not include anything about Belleville. As I dialed it on Monday morning, it was a 10:30 call, I was one of about 40 people on that call. I immediately knew this was never going to trickle down to Belleville. Commissioner McCabe started that call off. The first words out of her mouth were, "It's a glorious day for the residents of Newark. Their filters are working." Meanwhile, I'm sitting silenced and muted on the call. I was enraged and I was outraged. Then I heard about the $1 million the NJDEP is going to spend to advertise a PR campaign to the residents of Newark. And finally, at the end of the call, as nearly 40 other people spoke, the governor's office tried to terminate the call without giving me a chance to speak. I unmuted myself and I spoke. The first thing I said, Commissioner McCabe, this is the first time I agree with you. It is a glorious day for the residents of Newark who have filters. My 40,000 residents do not have filters. After some back and forth, the call was abruptly ended. That's where we are today. So to answer your question, Mayor Baraka has a much bigger voice. I can only do what I can do. We can issue a press release, we can invite the media here, and I can go digital, and I can go online. My residents now have a voice. They can log their concerns with that website, and we now have a larger voice standing directly above me. I hope people start taking notice in Trenton. We back into that number. It's admittedly it's a guesstimate. We back into that number based on age of houses. Any house built prior to 1950, when lead was commonly used, that's our guesstimate.
Why isn't that the homeowner's responsibility if it's the line from the main?
It absolutely is the homeowner's responsibility from the curb in, but it's the government's responsibility to provide them water that's correctly treated so that lead doesn't leach into the pipes. Again, I'm not the government in this situation. I don't treat the lines. So while it is the homeowner's responsibility from the curb in, it's also the government, or I should say, the water provider's responsibility to adequately treat that water so that it coats that line.
Mr. Mayor, have you heard anyone in the line
We do. I have a quote here that I could share with you from a company, the same exact company that I believe Newark used, and they gave us a really great discount. It's a six-figure price tag. It's to the tune of, I think, $250,000, which, keep in mind, each filter, you only get a 3-month lifespan out of it. We believe we need 9 months. So if that's $150,000 for filter, you can quickly do the math and see this is probably a $500,000 investment. But we have been working with one company in particular. I could share that information with you, and that company is giving us a generous discount, as well as they're matching. If we plan on buying 3,000, they're going to donate 3,000. So that's an excellent opportunity if we had the money to buy the filters. With the discount, it's $250,000, and I think that only gets us a 3 or 4 month supply. We estimate we need 9 months, therefore we'd have to buy additional replacement cartridges.
And how much would cartridges be?
We believe it's a total of about a $450,000 investment for 9 months for $6,000.
I have a temporary solution I can offer as a resident. I own a company in town, and as the mayor said, we don't want to wait for the state to keep in some money. So here's what my company will do as a resident. You guys buy your filters, you over to Lowe's. If you don't want to wait, call us. I'll send it over, and we'll install it at cost. So whenever my employee costs go to your house for that hour, what I will charge any Belleville resident to install a filter.
Thank you. I'll put you in contact with our township manager. We can maybe market that. Any other question before we conclude? I thank you all. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Can you... So, great question. I'm actually glad you asked that. I'm going to conclude with this answer. So what Newark did, Newark bought the Pure filters, which are faucet-mounted filters. They are cleared for 99%, which is great. The initial 3 that failed were probably installed incorrectly. The new tests show that they are holding at 99%. So they are weeding out 99% of the lead that may be in your pipes, if you even have lead pipes. What we are petitioning for is a little different than that. I don't want faucet-mounted filters. 1, there's installation issues. 2, not every single person has a kitchen faucet that you can twist and screw one of these in. I, in my house, did not have one of those. Plus, the last part is that if a resident runs hot water through it, it actually burns it out earlier. So what we're asking for is the simplest solution. We want a pouring picture mounted filter. That'll do a couple things. 1, everybody can use it. You can put water in it, put it in your refrigerator. 2, it's less likely you're going to put hot water through it. And number 3, the indicators are better as to how long they last and when they're expired. If that doesn't adequately answer, I can talk to you as soon as we're done. Same thing. So depending on if you use the same water in your kitchen, it would go through a filter, but then we also recommend the DEP standards, which are simply run your cold water first thing in the morning for about 2 to 3 minutes. And there's a reason for that. The reason is this: overnight, as the water sits in your line, as it sits in your lead line, if you have a lead line, by the way, the water sits in there, and that's where the lead is susceptible to leaching into the pipe. So first thing in the morning, if you run your water for 2 to 3 minutes, cold water, you'll flush that line out. I also argue that if you brush your teeth, flush your toilet, or take a shower, you probably adequately do that as well. But I can talk to you more afterwards, too. Thank you. Anybody else? No, I thank you all for coming. We do have some foam boards here if you guys want some screenshots or some images, and I thank you all for coming.